How you doing?
I'm doing great.
Okay, great. So we're recording this for our first ever Mother's Day special. And the first time you ever came to a Moth show, it occurs to me that you were actually pregnant with Matilda. And so tell me, how did you hear about the Moth?
I think I heard about the Moth through my friend Darcy Cosper, and she had been talking to me about it, for a long time. And finally, I went to, I don't know that it was a Moth ball, but it was at the Players Club.
Yeah, it was a main stage.
Yeah, and I was very pregnant,
Very
at the
pregnant.
time, and and it was all sold out, but somebody gave me a seat. And which, when you're pregnant, you are so appreciative of that. So it made me love the Moth forever.
Good. We actually have a policy of trying to seat pregnant women where they can get out to go to the bathroom, having all been pregnant ourselves. So it's like we try to not just give a seat, but give a seat where you could like run out during the show if you need to.
That's very kind.
Well, it's like women power. This is what happens when women are in power. So do you remember the first show? Do you remember what you thought?
I was really mesmerized and completely engaged. I don't remember the theme of the show, but I just remember just being completely in awe of all of the storytellers and just really interested.
So then this is how I remember it. So then I immediately wrote to you and asked you to tell a story, and you basically said, "No way, discuss."
Yes. Yeah, I think even that night you might have mentioned something about doing a story. And yes, I said no. There was no way, no how. I would never. Well, I'm afraid of public speaking, which is really a strange thing for an actress to say. But the idea of getting in front of an audience and not having a character, it's not somebody else's lines. It just really terrified me, and it still kind of terrifies me.
It's funny. It's been our experience that the smarter the actor, the more they run screaming from us. Even though the actors who have been willing to go there with us, like you, Ethan Hawke, Octavia Spencer, always totally nail it, like once you kind of give over. But I can actually understand that. It's like you're asking me to just go out on stage as myself, and that's not what I do.
Yeah, I think that's true. And also there's just something about actors, I think, that, we really want to please. I think that, we've been sort of trained to please, particularly actors who started as children, as I did. I think Ethan Hawke, too, started really young. And it's sort of getting over this idea that you're not performing. It's not a performance. You're telling a story, and there really are two different things.
It's true. I also feel like we also only ask the people that we think would be great. Like we're always looking for the actors that everyone wants to be seated next to at dinner, and that's not everybody, And so it's also, I know we've tried to, sometimes we break down people by being like, trust us, it is not in our interest to have you go up there and fail. And if we're asking you, it's because we think that you have something to say, but it's tricky. Okay, so then Facebook was invented, like in my little history with you here. So Facebook was invented, and you friended me. And at the time, Facebook allowed you to create sort of an original category of how you know someone. And I don't know if you remember this, but you wrote in, quote, "Trying to overcome fear of public speaking with Catherine since 2003.
Yeah.
Which is awesome.
I think it actually, I think I think the Moth actually really did help me to a certain extent. I mean, I won't say that I have no fear about public speaking, but I think it really helped. And, because I sing as well, I have to do a lot of public speaking with that. And I think telling stories for the Moth really helped that.
Good. Because, one of the first times I saw you just as yourself was you were singing at the party you threw when you married Ponyo. And the way you were just like riffing in between. I mean, of course you were in front of all your friends and family, but you were just so natural. And I think that's probably the reason why I continued to sort of stalk you over the years. Because then like really years after even that, I was in LA for a few days. We went out to lunch and you just told me story after amazing story. And I think it was at that lunch that you kind of said, okay, maybe. And we agreed to go for the story about Matilda. And one of the things I loved is that here you are, you're this woman, you could talk about famous directors. I've never even asked you about this, but you could probably talk about presidents. I mean, God knows. But what you wanted to talk about was your daughter and to kind of come out on stage, not as an actor, but as a mom. And do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think the story did come out of that lunch, and I didn't know that I would tell a story about Matilda, but obviously she is, along with my other kids, the most important part of my life, and it was really hard. I mean, we had gotten through this really difficult year. I think by the time I had even spoken to you about it, I was in another place, so I wasn't really right in the middle of it. Right. But it was really one of the most difficult years of my life, and it was, and I think I was able to talk about it because I wasn't right in the middle. I mean, like that pastor, Nadia. What's her name? Yeah, I love her. Preach from your scars. Yeah, preach from your scars. Yeah, because you really don't have any sort of you can't talk about something with any kind of clarity if you're right in the middle of it.
It's the truth. We used to have rules. Did I tell you this when we talked on the phone before? Like that we had rules like 10 years for a death, 5 years for a divorce. Although then recently a psychiatrist told us it should be the reverse. That divorce is much more traumatizing than someone dying, which is interesting. And we used to really stick with it. And like every now and then you get like a Tig Notaro who just can walk out and say, I was diagnosed with breast cancer this morning and totally rock it. But it's rare. Most people need time to process, even if they don't think they do.
Yeah. I think so. I mean, I definitely, I couldn't have spoken about it. And I wouldn't have wanted to because I didn't know where it was going to end up.
Totally. You definitely have to at least, maybe if you're not, you have to be to the end of the whole story, but you have to be able to, like, I think find some place to land it. Mm-hmm. And if you can't, if there's not at least some pause on the story, then people aren't ready to tell it. That's one of the ways I kind of judge it. So were you nervous that night in North Carolina?
I'm sure I was. I've been nervous every time that I've had to get in front of an audience and just talk.
Yeah. How did you feel afterwards? Do you remember?
I think I just felt so relieved and glad that it was over. I think I just, I think I was really just happy that I got it all out, I think that's probably the way that most storytellers feel.
I think so too. People are just relieved if they hit their beats and more or less get all of the beats in, which I don't think you did. I don't think you left anything out.
I don't think I did. I've only listened to it once since I told the story. I might listen to it again. And one day, I knew you were going to ask me that. One day I will play it for Matilda, but I think some more time has to go on.
21st birthday.
Yeah. Yeah.
But speaking of her, so give us an update. How is Miss Matilda doing?
Oh, she's doing incredibly well. I mean, from the time the time that I talked about her, she was in the second grade, and now she's just getting ready to graduate from the fifth grade, and she's part of the student council. She's Madam Secretary. She ran for the student council in fourth grade and didn't win. And then she ran again in fifth grade and did. And I mean, that to me is a real testament to how everything turned around and also really spoke to her incredible resilience. She really, really struggled in the second grade with everything and had no school spirit. Really thought that she was wasting her time. When I would ask her how she felt about school, going back to school, she said, "Well, I guess I'm just going to waste another year of my life." Yeah, and I mean, it was intense, and she's just not in that place anymore. She makes little stop animation films, about the atom and photosynthesis. She is a great storyteller. She loves reading and writing, and she's still an iconoclast. She's always going to be an original, but I think she's learning to channel it. And she's also a really good friend. She has a group of friends, and that to me is the most important thing. So yeah, she's in a great place.
That's awesome. I love, God, how do I know this? I don't know if you were tell me or that she's like, yeah, that she's such a good friend. Like that she, even though she kind of never believed in the Easter Bunny or Santa Claus, that she protected her friends from finding out. Right.
That's true.
Yeah.
Her best friend, actually, the girl that she's been friends with since Matilda was 4 and she was 3. And they're still really good friends. But her friend believed in not just the Easter Bunny, but she believed, when her parents were going through a difficult divorce, her mom invented a fairy that used to come named Pippa and used to leave her little messages and, encouraging notes. And when Matilda found out that the Easter Bunny didn't exist, she kept it going for her friend for years, and she does it for her brother and sister as well. So yeah, she's a good heart.
I love that. I see her as a fierce protector, like having been protected by you guys now, like sort of rising up. I can't wait to see what she's gonna do. Like, one to watch that Matilda.
I know. I hear that a lot from people. And it's really interesting. I hear people say, I can't wait to meet the adult that Matilda becomes.
Totally. Oh. So I want to talk about one of the things that I love most about you. I've never said this to you. I've said this to other people about you, but here we are. So now for the first time, you're so down to earth. And yet the fact is, you're not just famous, you are a full-on icon. And I want to talk about that because I met you at the Moth, but of course, the first time I really saw you, I went to see 16 Candles at the Twin Cinemas in Alexander City, Alabama, where I grew up. And 80s movies mostly featured, very, at the time, two-dimensional blondes with big hair. And suddenly there you were, just as gorgeous, but clearly so smart and funny with real depth. And for the first time, for me, as like a teenager seeing a movie, I could find myself in the characters you played. And that was a revelation for me. And I know so many people feel this way about you. So then when we finally met in real life, I was like, oh my God, it's Molly Ringwald. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Maybe it's funny that you remember me asking you to tell a story because I just remember being totally starstruck. But you put me at ease. And I've seen you do this with so many other people. And I sort of suspect that you understand the effect you have on people and that over time you've become highly skilled at meeting people like me and sort of quickly and quietly breaking down our starstruckiness so that you can connect with people on a human level. And I'm wondering if you're consciously aware of that.
Wow, that is such an interesting and flattering question. I think I'm aware of it in some way, and I do think that I try to disarm that as fast as I can, because I do like to make connections with people, and it's actually pretty easy to get rid of that, whatever that is, that starstruckiness. But I don't walk around feeling like a famous person all the time. I don't, who can do that? I mean, it's something that I'm definitely aware of. And I know that those movies, have had a really strong effect on people, but it's not something that I think about all the time. So yeah, I think I just try to get through that as quickly as I can so I can make a real connection. But I'm constantly always so touched by how people are, what people have connected with in me. And I still kind of can't believe how many people, feel the way that you do about those movies. I mean, I don't really take ownership, I think, as much as I could or maybe even should, because I didn't write the movies. I just acted in them. But I guess, but it was me. I mean, I did bring a lot to those movies, so I guess I should take ownership.
I think you should. I mean, you brought those characters to life in this amazing way. And you also, you paved the way because you had this opportunity to play a different kind of girl on screen and nailed it. Then suddenly we could have Mary Stuart Masterson and Claire Danes, right? And even, Jennifer Lawrence, Lena Dunham. Like, I feel like you sort of opened up a whole new world for women. And anyway, maybe this is not a question. I'm just like, let me just embarrass you. That's where the interview will go downhill.
Mary Stewart's older than I am, so I didn't pave the way for Mary Stewart. Actually, you know that Mary Stewart's mom played my mom in 16 Candles?
No way. Is that true?
Yeah. And she told me that, her daughter wanted to be an actor. Like I think she had been doing some acting, but she hadn't really, she wasn't really known yet.
I think I did understand that she was older than you, but it was just like some of her great characters came after you'd already established these parts, right? Watts came after, and like some of these other like sort of characters that again moved women forward in film.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Yeah. Okay, so now this is actually the last question. Is so in your Moth story, you and Matilda are listening to Radio Lab. And of course, we adore Radio Lab. And but I know that you have a deep love for public radio. And I wondered if you wanted to talk about why you think public radio matters.
I do love public radio. And I think it's something that now everybody in public radio knows about. Like, I'm such a huge public radio advocate. I love the intimacy. I listened to a lot of radio growing up because I think maybe because my dad is blind. And so he has always listened to a lot of radio. I mean, and he's a huge baseball fan, but he's the guy that will go to the game, but listen to his radio. Because he feels like the radio announcers are better than the announcers at the game. And so I think I always listened to radio when I was in the car with my dad, and it always just feels very comforting to me. And I love just how involved, I feel like I really get into these stories. I mean, Radio Lab is incredible for that, and the Moth, the stories for the Moth. I mean, the other day I was listening to the story about the guy who was in the tsunami and in Japan. And I actually had to pull to the side of the road because I was crying so much. I mean, it was so these stories just take you on a journey. And for me as an actress and as a writer, I'm always looking for that in the characters that I play or the characters that I write. And for me, it's just I think that's why I gravitate so much to radio, is, for these stories, to understand human beings and how we work.
Amazing. Well, I can't think of a better way to end. So, Molly, thank you so much for taking time on this Sunday to sit on the Moth couch with me.
You're very welcome.
It's suffice to say, I think me and everyone at the Moth, we love you and appreciate so much the time you give us. So, mwah to you.
Oh, thank you. Mwah back.